Materia Ture.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. On behalf of the Green Party, I offer our condolences to the friends and family of Malcolm Fraser and to acknowledge the huge contribution that he made to Australian politics and society. My colleague Russell Norman described Malcolm Fraser as an outstanding Australian voice of sanity and humanity. Throughout his life, he stood up for what was right and championed a very progressive social agenda with great concern for those who were the most marginalised. He was a fierce opponent of apartheid. He helped to form the Gleneagles Agreement that insisted South Africa end apartheid if it wanted to continue to compete in the Commonwealth Games. And he infamously banned the plane carrying the Springbok rugby team from refuelling in Australia on its way to New Zealand for the tour in 1981. He continued this work after leaving Parliament, including chairing the Commonwealth Group of Eminent Persons Against Apartheid in South Africa. He had a deep interest in the advancement of Indigenous people, and it was his government that recognised Aboriginal land rights through establishing the land rights regime in the Northern Territory. He also established the National Aboriginal Conference, a national organisation that represented Indigenous Australians. His government also established the Human Rights Commission. He was a champion of a multicultural Australia and set up the SBS, a channel to provide multilingual broadcasting for Australia's migrant community. He was instrumental in Australia accepting 70,000 Vietnamese refugees displaced by the Vietnam War, including 2,000 who arrived by boat with no documentation. He also worked to ensure that once in Australia, these refugees were embraced. And this cause stayed with him for life, most notably expressed with him quitting the Liberal Party in 2009 after their election ad portraying asylum seekers swamping Australia. He described the ads as, quote, a throwback to a racist past, not just for the Liberal Party, but for Australia. His legacy also extends to environmental concerns. His government prohibited exploration and drilling for petroleum on the Great Barrier Reef and later declared Great Barrier a marine park. He also banned sand mining on Fraser Island, passed law to create national parks in Australia, and under his leadership, the first Australian sites were placed on the World Heritage List. His government also enacted the Whale Protection Act, ending whaling in Australia, and achieved greater protection for Australian wildlife. Malcolm Fraser was also staunch on climate change. Back in 1980, he said, "The planet's capacity to support its people is being irreversibly reduced by the destruction and degradation of the biosphere, and the need to understand the problem and take corrective action is becoming urgent." Over 30 years later, he put his name to action on climate change, saying the overwhelming body of scientific evidence supports the need for change. Many countries are well ahead of Australia. We need to act or we will fall further behind. When asked what he considered his badge of honour, there was a list of administrative law reform, including establishing the Human Rights Commission, and he said, because they all go to how governments treat its people. Thank you, Mr Speaker.